All right, so chapter 1 test. I've had this posted for a couple days, but I thought I would do a video. Test is today, and it may not help you for today, but it will certainly help you for when you're studying for the follow-up test. So I thought I would go over this. All right, so again, big idea. We are getting J alone, R alone, X alone, whatever it happens to be, we are getting it alone. So to do that, we're getting stuff away from it. We do that, we're doing the opposite operation. So it looks different for each problem because each problem, different things are happening on that X side, J side, R side. So I'm just going to go step by step through these scenarios, and if you see enough of them, it might just start clicking with you. So that's what we're going to do. All right, so 18 equals J plus 20. And some of you will want to try to do this stuff in your head, and you're going to look at that and say 2. But let's go ahead and do the math. So plus 20. So we subtract 20, subtract 20. Now here's the deal. So it leaves J on this side and equals, it's 18 minus 20. Okay, so 18 is positive, 20 is negative. So we're subtracting, we see that's 2. So you're on the right track. But we had more negatives. The 20 is bigger and it was negative. So it's actually negative 2. So just doing stuff in your head could lead to some wrong conclusions, whether it's a misconception or just your brain leaping to conclusions before it can really stop and think about it. All right, so that's the first one. Number 2, r plus 8 equals negative 11. So what plus 8 is negative 11? So negative 8, negative 8. So again, that gets rid of that. And I didn't cross it out up here, but same idea, it gets rid of that. So what I have left with is r on this side, and then I've got negative 8 and negative 11 and negative 8. Okay, so I can make my 2 marks. So it's negative 11 plus a negative 8. It's the same idea. So I've got, I'm going to have to add those because they're same sign and they're both negative. So it's going to be 19, negative 19. And so some of you are going to go through the process. Now you see the steps that I'm taking. Okay, take those steps so that you can see. I might see that, yeah, you're subtracting 8 from each side, but then you're trying to tell me the answer is 3. So it tells me you have an integer issue, not a solving equation issue. So share your work as much as possible, please. So divide. X divide by 20. So the inverse of divide is to multiply by 20. That will reduce that. And then I multiply by 20 over here. So I've got, and it's a positive 20 times a negative 19. So my answer is going to be negative because they're different signs. So then I've got 19 times 20. I like to, if I have zeros, I just bring them down. I like hang them over and bring them down. 2 times 9 is 18. 2, 3. So 380. So 380, negative 380. And when you're doing this and you're putting this in Get More Math, you're just putting in the number. You do not actually have to put in the x equals. Wouldn't want to see you guys missing that because of just the way you typed it in. Just put in the number. Okay, 7a equals 77. All right, so that one's a times. So to undo times, highlight that. So undo times, I'm going to divide. So divide by 7, divide by 7. A equals 11. Maybe have a multiplication chart nearby so that for some of these math facts, you have them pretty quick. You can look at that. The more time you have to do some of this simple stuff, the more likely you are to get sidetracked or tired or frustrated. So if you have some of these math facts down, it's a little bit easier. All right, so this one's a 2-step problem. So on all of these problems before, one of the things you'll notice is that they only had one thing that we had to get rid of, one thing. So we had to get rid of one thing and one thing. So now we're moving into problems that have 2 things to get rid of. Okay, so the 2 things here, I need to get rid of this, and then I need to get rid of this. Okay, if I look at the next problem, there's my m. I need to get rid of this, and then I need to get rid of this. Okay, and so there's 2 things. So it's why it's called a 2-step problem. So we'll get rid of, on these 2-step problems, we'll get rid of that constant first. It goes out of the way. I have a hard enough time with space as it is. So I'm going to draw the river just because we're starting to get into that pattern. So I draw the river. I'm going to get the constants to the other side. I have x's only on one side, so constants the other. So that's why that plus 13 goes first. Plus 13. Always moving away from the x. Use the arrows just to kind of get that in your head. I've got a negative 9 and a positive 13, so I have to subtract those from the difference. So 13 minus 9 is 4. 13 was bigger, it was positive. Not done, there's a second step. So k divided by, so to undo divide, times. Okay, and so I've got negative 12 times 4 is negative 48 equals k. And done. So again, sign rules. So here I had different signs, so I subtracted and got 4, and the positive was bigger, so it's positive 4. Here I'm multiplying by negative 12. These cancel, but I have different signs, negative and positive, and the multiplication rule says that if they're different, it's going to be negative. So don't get careless, like get so excited you're doing the right steps that you get careless with the signs and then end up missing it. Okay. The only way I'm going to know that that's the case is if you're showing your work. Show your work. Today, on the first test, you're going to have to do that. Okay, so let's get rid of that negative 17. So it's just going to be positive 17, positive 17. It's gone. So m over negative 11 equals, I draw my river. I keep forgetting to do that. Okay, and I've got a negative 2 and a positive 17, so it's different signs, so I've got to find the difference. It's 15, and that positive was bigger, so I had more positive, so it's going to be positive 15. Times negative 11, those cancel, times negative 11. So now I've got to come over here and do 15 times 11. 5, 1, 5, 1, 165. Okay, so m equals 165, and then I go back and check the signs. Oh, look, I have different signs. My different signs and make that negative. So it's negative 165. Sign rules, sign rules, sign rules. Double check your sign rules. Okay. All right, so that's the first 6 problems. So then we get into some more here, and this one's a good one because you might run into it. So we have some invisible math on this one that would be important to look at. So when we're looking at this next one, here's my variable. And you're saying, well, there's no number in front, but there's a minus. Let's go ahead and put the invisible math there because that's going to be important down the road. If it's plus j, then we're kind of done. But if it's minus j, j's not alone. Okay, so we'll see how this works. So we do have a 2-step equation here. We've got to get rid of the 6, and then we've got to get rid of the negative 1. Okay, so I come up with my plan. It's like, oh, it's 2-step. I got to get these guys gone. Okay, so then I'm going to subtract 6, and that makes that go away. And subtract 6. So here's my river. Okay, so I've got negative 1j. Don't lose that negative at this point. If there's a negative in front of the j, it has to come down. 17 minus 6. Oh, okay, that's 11. Okay, so you think, well, this last step. Yeah, this last step. I divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1. Doesn't change much, but it does change the sign. When you divide by negative 1, it changes the sign. So I had positive 11, but after I divided by negative 1, I ended up with negative 11. Okay, so you got to be careful with that. That is one of the ones that if it popped up, you could end up staring at for like 10 minutes going, what do I do with that? Okay, solve for C. Again, 2 steps. So I've got my C here. Get rid of that, get rid of that. Okay, so that's my plan. Okay, so I'm going to draw my river. Plus 1, plus 1. 7C equals 28. I like to see that. Divide by 7, divide by 7, C equals 4. That one is pretty straightforward. And remember what that means. That means that if I put 4 in here, 7 times 4 is 28, minus 1 is 27. And I had 27 on this side. So 4 is what's going to make the right side equal to the left side. Bingo. All right, so now we're getting into some problems that have some different steps. And so if I think about the whole line of steps that we have, we do parentheses, and then we do like terms after we do the river. So I don't have parentheses, but I do have like terms. So I look at this side. Oh, look, they're both constants. So 57 plus 15. So 67, so 72. Okay. Then I look at this side. Oh, look, 2K and 7K. Those like terms. So that's 9K. And when you combine those like terms, it's a pretty sweet deal because now it's just here's my K and it's a one step equation. So I'm just dividing by 9, dividing by 9. K equals 8. Again, have that multiplication chart next to you if you need to or whatever. This next problem is pretty similar. Okay. So draw my river, no parentheses, like terms. So make my 2 marks. So that's going to be negative 21 equals negative 9 plus 6. So negative 3v because they're different sign, negative, positive. So I'm going to subtract. 9 minus 6 is 3. I had more negatives. So it's going to be negative 3. Okay, so I'm left with one step because here's this and it's times. So I'm going to divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. And again, always going away from that v. So v equals 7. Negative divided by a negative, so same sign. That's where we get that positive there. Okay, so sign rules, sign rules, sign rules. Big deal. Some of you guys blew that off last year, and it's going to come back to bite you. All right, so again, I've got the river, I've got parentheses, I've got likes, I've got variables to one side, constants to the other, and then get x alone. So these are the steps we're going through. Now, I'm going to go ahead and follow those. So there might be another way to do this, but I'm just going to go through this way. Okay, so I've got to go 9 minus 15v equals, and then I'm going to go ahead and do my like terms right now, and that same thing. So why rewrite it when I could actually add it? So 9 minus 75. So 75 minus 9 is going to be 66. So I got 66, but it was negative. So I'm going to call that negative 66. Okay, so here's my variable. So I'm going to subtract 9, subtract 9. So again, I've got negative and I got negative, and they're both negative. So I'm going to have to add them. So 66 and 9. No, wait a minute. No, we just did. Not 75. Okay, so 75. We took away the 9. Now we're adding the 9. All right. Equals. And then negative 15v. Now notice one of the things I was very careful about here is that I brought that negative down. So don't lose negatives in this process. It's easy to lose it when you get the crossing out thing going on. So divide by negative 15, divide by negative 15, and at this point, those negatives become positive. Okay, so 15 goes in 4, 5. So 15 times 5, I'm double checking, so it's 25, 5, 6, 7, so 75, yes. And that's positive because they were both negative, which made them positive. Okay. I was telling you there's another way on this one because there's nothing really being added out here. So one of the things I sometimes look for is an alternate way. You can just go straight into river and parentheses and do all that. But one thing that I look at, because there's nothing being added out here, one thing I look at is what if I undid this times first, which according to order of operations, I can do that. Okay. And I could divide by negative 8 and divide by negative 8. Now that's really only an advantage to our problem if 8 goes in evenly. So I look at that 408, and I've already kind of done this math in my head, and I see if 8 goes into 45 times with no remainder, and 8 goes into 8 one time. So it goes in 51 times. So it does go in evenly. So in those cases, so then I could just say this is 51, and then I just take this whole thing out of the parentheses because that's just another way to deal with those parentheses. Okay, so a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so it's positive 51. And so now I have my two-step equation. Now you could have just distributed first and gone to two-step, that's fine. Just another way to look at that. So there's my m, so I'm going to move this, so plus 5, and I get 56. equals 7m. So then I'm going to divide by 7, and then I run out of room, so I can move it over here. 8 equals m. I'm just going through the steps. So this one, I do have something outside those parentheses, so I'm not going to make that tricky step. But all right, so I've got my river, my parentheses, my likes. Now on this side, I have likes with no parentheses, so I'm just going to add those right now in this first step. So 224, 234, 240. Now this side I do have parentheses, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So negative 48 plus 8 times 5 is 40r minus 4r. So now I'm still got some likes over here, so I've got 240 equals negative 48 plus, and then our different signs, so 40 minus 4, so it's 36r. So plus 48 plus 48, 8 d8 equals 288 equals 36r, and then I gotta look at that. So I know it's less than 10 because if it was more than 10, it'd be bigger than 360. And then so I'm going to try 8. 6 times 8 is 48, and I need it to end in 8. So if I'm looking at this, I need it to end in 8, and that 8 did that, so then I can test the rest of it. So it's 48, carry the 4. 24 plus 4 is 28, so it's 288, so R equals 8. Okay. So I'm not using a calculator. I'm just going ahead and doing some guess and check. You could use a quick calculator for that. And if you're making some mistakes along the way, the calculator's not magically going to make you get the right answer. So that would work. All right. So on this next problem, draw the river. Okay, I'm doing my parentheses. So 30 plus 6 times 3 is 18c. Bring the plus 5 down. So plus 5 equals 197. Add like terms, so 30 plus 35 is 30 plus 5 is 35 plus 18c equals 197. Here's my c, so I moved my variables on the left, so I need to move everything else to the right. So I'm going to subtract 35, subtract 35. The 197 is positive, this is minus, so I'm going to subtract, get 162 equals 18c. Now again, I'm doing some guess and check. So 18 times 9. And I chose 9 because, again, it ends in 2. And 8 times 9 is 72. That's where knowing those math facts can help you shortcut stuff. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 7 is 16. So yes, that's 162. So C equals 9. Okay. All right. Nearest tenth. That doesn't change anything. I've got my line. I've got my river, my parentheses, none, my like terms, none, my variables to one side. I'm going to go ahead and move that to that side. So I've got 7x minus 2.7. So that's 7.0 minus 2.7. So you got to make sure that you're lining up the decimal, which means you need to kind of add that decimal there. So I subtract, and so I got to borrow, so 10 minus 7 is 3. Became 6, so it's 4.3. So negative 8 equals 7 plus 4.3x. Move that way. So negative 7, negative 7. Ooh. Both negative, so I'm going to add them, so 15. But negative equals 4.3x. And then we're going to use a calculator. So it's said to the nearest tenth, so I'm going to divide by 4.3, divide by 4.3. Again, always keeping an eye on the x and moving away from it. So 15 divided by 4.3 is a big number. So I first look and say negative divided by positive, that's going to be a negative, and I'll show you what it is. It's 3.48837.209 on my computer screen, on my calculator screen. So I look at this, it said to the nearest tenth, so that's going to be that. So this, you look at that, if it's 5 or more, it's going to round that up. So it's going to be negative 3.5 equals x. If that circled number was less than 5, then it would just be 3.4. Okay? Tricky. All right. Yes, you'll miss that if you don't round it correctly. Yeah, that's going to stink. Okay. River. Okay, and just to skip formalities, I'm going to start moving x's to one side, so 2.7, so plus 8.5 x. So I'm going to come over here, 5.0 plus 8.5. I've got 13.5. They're both positive, so 2.7 plus 13.5x equals 0.7. So now I'm going to move this way, so minus 2.7. So I'm going to subtract, so 2.7 minus 0.7 is just going to be 2. Okay, but the negative was bigger, so it's going to be negative 2. So 13.5x equals negative 2. So I divide by 13.5. Remember, here's the x. Moving that way. So divide by the 13.5, 13.5. It's going to be negative because negative positive. And 2 divided by 13.5 equals 0.57. So this number is going to actually round that up. So x equals negative 0.6. Because the hundredth place rounded it up. So negative 0.6. All right, so 17 and 18, and I think I'll stop there. I think that's hopefully the last ones. How many solutions does it have? So remember that it has one solution if the x's don't cancel. Okay, if they do cancel, if it's true, what's left behind, then it's infinite. If it's false, then the constant's left behind, then it is no solution. Okay, so let's just check this out. All right. Okay, so we got 48x plus a negative 6 equals 48x, do my like terms here, minus 4. Subtract 48x, subtract 48x. Oh, x's cancel. So then we look at what's left behind. Negative 6 equals negative 4. Is that always going to be true or always going to be false? If you thought false, you were right. So it's a no solution. A is no solution. Okay, 18. How many solutions does the following equation have? Wow, we got some adding like term things to do here. Okay, so that's going to be, I'm writing this over here, negative 4x. Add these like terms, plus 8 equals, add these, so negative 3x, plus add these, negative 13. So I'm just checking my work here real quick. So when I move, maybe I'll move that over there. So plus 4x, 8 equals 1x plus a negative 13. And I look at that, the x's did not cancel. So x not cancel, so it's one solution. And if I kept going with it, the solution would be 21, I believe. So one solution. So the x's didn't cancel, so it's one solution. All right, that's the extent of what I'm going to do.